The gate agent's voice was a needle of suspicion, piercing the pre-flight hum of the crowded terminal. "Captain Jackson, we need you to step aside for a moment." The agent, a man named Billings with a pinched face, stood with his arms crossed, blocking the jet bridge. On one side was the agent, a symbol of rigid, unquestioned authority. On the other was Captain Miles Jackson, standing tall in his crisply pressed pilot's uniform, the 4 gold stripes on his epaulets gleaming under the fluorescent lights. The power dynamic was supposed to be clear, but Billings had decided to rewrite it. He saw a black man in a pilot's uniform and assumed a costume, not a career. He had no idea that the delayed passengers in the gate area were about to become an unexpected jury, and that their verdict would demand that the very man he was questioning take his rightful place in the cockpit. "There's an issue with your credentials," Billings said, his voice loud enough for the first few rows of waiting passengers to hear. He made a show of scrutinizing Miles's ID and airline documentation. "We've had reports of impersonators. You understand, we have to be thorough." The implication hung in the recycled air, heavy and toxic. Miles felt the familiar cold wash of indignation. He thought of the countless hours in flight simulators, the years spent climbing the ranks from regional props to this major international carrier. He simply nodded, his posture remaining ramrod straight. "My wings were earned," he thought, a mantra from his first solo flight, not given. He handed over his wallet, his movements slow and deliberate, projecting a calm he did not feel. The delay stretched. A nervous flutter moved through the crowd. A storm was brewing over the flight path, and the promise of a smooth ride was evaporating with each passing minute. A young boy pointed at Miles. "Mommy, why is the pilot in trouble?" Billings, feeling the pressure, offered a placating smile to the grumbling passengers. "Just a standard security check, folks. We'll have you boarded soon." It was then that an elderly woman in a business suit, a frequent flyer named Mrs. Gable, stood up. She didn't address Billings. She walked directly to Miles, ignoring the agent completely. "Captain," she said, her voice clear and carrying, "this storm front. What's our best shot at a smooth crossing?" She was inviting him to act, to be the expert he was. Miles looked from her earnest face to the anxious crowd. He didn't glance at Billings for permission. He turned to the large window overlooking the tarmac. He began to speak, his voice calm, confident, and laced with a deep understanding of meteorology and aerodynamics. He pointed at the distant, bruised purple clouds. "See the anvil shape? That's a mature cumulonimbus. We'll need to request a northern deviation from air traffic control, climbing to 40,000 feet to get above the turbulence. It'll add 20 minutes, but the ride will be significantly smoother." He spoke not with arrogance, but with the quiet authority of a master of his craft. The transformation in the gate area was immediate. The passengers weren't just listening, they were entrusting him with their safety. Billings, his authority crumbling, tried to regain control. He stepped forward, lowering his voice. "Look, Captain, I can clear this up. We'll get you on the flight as a passenger. First class, on the house. Let's just get a replacement pilot out here and get this plane in the air." He was trying to buy Miles's silence, to co-opt his dignity with a premium seat. Miles turned from the window and looked Billings directly in the eye. "No," he said, his voice firm but quiet. "I will not be a passenger on my own flight." "You are not offering me a seat. You are asking me to surrender my command. I refuse." The word refuse seemed to hang in the air. It was then that the young boy who had spoken earlier piped up, his voice ringing with childish logic. "But he's the pilot. He knows about the clouds." A man in a baseball mau-mau stood. "Yeah, I want the guy who knows how to avoid turbulence." Another voice joined, then another. A chant started, soft at first, then growing in strength and unity. "Let him fly! Let him fly! Let him fly!" It was a public referendum, and Billings had lost. The revelation of Miles's true expertise, demonstrated not through a credential check, but through his commanding knowledge, was complete. The backstory, soon uncovered by a journalist passenger, was that Captain Miles Jackson was a former Air Force pilot who had flown dozens of combat rescue missions, a man decorated for valor. Billings, the arrogant antagonist, was exposed not just as prejudiced, but as incompetent. He was removed from gate duties the following day, but the story didn't end at the gate. A week later, a contrite Billings, after undergoing mandatory bias training, requested a meeting with Miles. He didn't make excuses. He handed Miles a proposal he had drafted for the airline, a new mentorship program pairing senior pilots with underprivileged youth interested in aviation, with Miles as its lead. "You earned your wings," Billings said, the words sounding newly learned. "I want to help others see that path exists." The man who had questioned his capability was now advocating for his vision. The passenger's demand had not just put a pilot in his seat. It had helped open the cockpit door for a new generation. It proves that competence speaks louder than prejudice, and that dignity, when backed by unshakable expertise, can turn a crowd of strangers into a powerful force for justice. If this story about hidden potential and collective courage touched you, subscribe for more tales of transformation.